Hello, welcome everyone. This is a very brief introduction into Dungeons and Dragons. This is about as brief as I can make it. My name is Jesse, if you don't know me, and we are going to be going over just the uh, most distilled version of, abilities and classes and skills, things like that. Everything you would want to know before you start able to actually playing the game. So I'm just going to jump right into it. What is D&D? So D&D stands for Dungeons and Dragons. It is a tabletop role-playing game. It is best way to probably describe it would be to define it as collaborative storytelling with chance involved. So instead of necessarily just playing a game, we are all telling a story about our characters. Maybe you are a knight of the round table, of not that round table, but a different kind of round table. And you're on a quest to retrieve the golden chalice of the nine gods. Maybe you're like a rogue braggart who, is a criminal mastermind of the underbelly of whatever city or of the world that you're in. That is all things that would be determined either in the backstory that you write for your character or things that would be determined in the actual game that we'd be playing. What makes it a game? We got dice. We got a bunch of dice. There are many elements to the world that are implemented that are kind of left up to chance, sort of like real life. So the main difference being that you can't, like a child, just be like, oh, I go and I hit him with my sword and I cut his head off and it does a million billion damage and then I'm crowned the king of the world. Like there are forces that will stop you from doing that. If you want to do that, go ahead and write some fiction. That's totally valid and could be good, depending. Um, what is a character that you're making? So a character is first of all, uh, 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 the ship that carries the story, right? So if you're a knight of the round table, maybe your name is Lancelot. Maybe you are a tall, strong knight. Maybe you're not particularly the most dexterous person in the world. Dexterous, strength, these are weird phrases. Let's get into that a little bit. So, if you've ever played any kind of RPG, some of these might seem familiar to you. If not, that's okay. I'm going to explain them. There are 6 different abilities that can be that make up the simulacrum of your character. The first one of those being strength, which is pretty straightforward. It's your muscle. It's how strong you are, how well you can climb a tree, how hard you can hit with a hammer. You get the idea. Dexterity is kind of like the coin flip on strength. Instead of being big and strong, you might be thin and nimble. You might be like a very rogues are very dexterous in this sense. So are rangers. These are classes I'll go over in a second. They use their agility in order to either avoid damage or to land the perfectly placed blow in order to hurt somebody. The one tying both of those together would be Constitution. This is your endurance. For those familiar with role-playing games, this would be your health. So the higher your Constitution, the higher your health, the more likely you are to resist poison or being poisoned, things of that nature. How well you can take a hit. On the more mental side, we start to go into the mind mirror of strength, which is intelligence. This is just your flat IQ. This is how much stuff you know. This is how good you are at logic. How quickly you can deduce things. what kind of trees are have strong wood, what sort of buildings were made at a certain time in this world. It could really be whatever you want it to be. Um, Anything that you get on a paper would be intelligence. And as intelligence is to IQ, wisdom is to intuition. This is more like street smarts. This is how well you can feel the world around you. Um, this gets a little bit more esoteric with it. Basically, to put it in a game sense, this is how a main way that you are able to put power behind spells or to help deflect spells. If you know that a spell is coming, you can better prepare your mind to repel it. And the last one in the non-physical realm is charisma. This has kind of a split meaning. Charisma in the general sense, which is like how good you are in crowds, how likable you are. The other sense of it being your force of will. Charisma in this sense means like how well you can bend reality around you. If you believe in yourself well enough, then you can change the physical world around you. This is true for a lot of different classes, which I will go into right now. So another good way to split up all these classes, here's a bunch of them. Actually, here's, well, most of them, but you can always kind of bend them a little bit. Sometimes there's extra classes, but for now, let's just focus on these ones. You can split them into two categories. Warriors, like melee warriors, and spellcasters. The most generic of the warriors, although not to be overlooked, is the fighter. This is your knight in shining armor. They wear heavy armor. They have a lot of training and a lot of different weapons. They have a lot of extra abilities that let them do more damage, give other people more attacks, let you move around faster. Sometimes you can distract other people with these blows. I feel fighters are very often overlooked, whereas they're actually incredibly, incredibly good. So if this is your first time playing, fighter has a low floor and a high ceiling. So it's easy to get into and it's hard to master. Perfect for if you want to just mess around and figure out how this darn game works. The cousin of the fighter is the barbarian. They do not wear armor, as you can tell by this guy from this Viking show. They are more like wild warriors. They are fueled by, they usually have a giant two-handed weapon, usually an axe or a hammer. One of their main abilities is to be able to fly into a rage. They can essentially makes them you can hit them fine, but they don't take as much damage. When they do make contact with a weapon, they do more damage, and they're just overall pretty scary to have right in your face. So for those looking to maybe roleplay a bit in a different direction, Barbarian is definitely a way to go. They can be a lot of fun. That was actually my first character that I ever played. Next is the Paladin. So this is kind of a mix between a fighter and a spellcaster. So a paladin is like a holy warrior. They draw magical power from a deity. Usually a holy deity, but they don't necessarily have to be holy. They could be evil. There's a wide spectrum of different gods and things that you can devote yourself to. So you don't have to be like, oh, I am a paladin that it keeps the light of the way strong. You could be a corrupt paladin and fight for evil. And that also goes with all of these classes. You really can play them however you want to. D&D is a very flexible game, so please let your imagination get the better of you. It's a lot of fun that way. Something to notice for paladins is while they use strength and constitution, as do the barbarians and the fighters, paladins actually primarily use charisma and wisdom. So wisdom being spellcasting and charisma being, in this sense, their force of will, how strongly they believe in their own cause. You don't have to know exactly what these skills are. They kind of just help to explain the mechanics of the dice that you're rolling if you want to get into it like that. I know a lot of first timers are going to be overwhelmed, so don't sweat about that stuff. Just know that paladins are holy warriors that can be evil if they want to. More on the dexterous side, opposed to our strength-based fight warriors, is first of all the ranger. Um, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, I put Legolas here. You could also absolutely combine him with Aragorn in this sense. Not only are they usually bowmen, they are also trackers and survivalists. These people live in the woods generally, or some kind of biome, maybe the desert. They are very good at tracking animals, prey, maybe targets. These are very good spies for outdoor situations. Generally, they use bows, but they can definitely use some lighter weapons up front, and they can be a force to be reckoned with as well. Um, they are one of the classes that has more of a propensity to be friendly to animals if you want to. They have more kind of baked into their skill set that you can have an animal companion with you. Sometimes you fight with a bow, and then you have a pet wolf that is up front, kind of taking blows for you. In this sense, they're not super crazy strong, although they do need strength for things, but they're mostly dexterity based. These are, very good at dodging, good acrobatics, and needing their dexterity to help them with their weapon attacks. Just right down the line on Ranger is to the Rogue. This is a best way to put it would be an assassin, like I have written here. These are people that skulk in the shadows generally. These are spy masters for sure. You have lighter armor. You don't have as much health. You don't have as much strength, but you get a lot of really strong attacks, especially dexterity-based attacks. They're hard to hit usually, and they are very good at stealing and picking locks, be it doors or treasure chests. So most people do like to have a rogue in a party just for their utility. The third of the more dexterous bunch is the monk. This is extremely straightforward. You're a karate master. You use unarmed strikes to fight everyone. You get really good power with your fists and your feet and headbutts if that's how you want to do it. Any combination of any amount of body hits that's your monk. They have a power called Ki, Ki. It's like a life force that goes through everyone that really only monks utilize. You're able to utilize your own ki to strengthen your attacks. You can also manipulate the ki in other people to either get them to do something that you want, maybe make them more vulnerable to your attacks. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that. They use strength sometimes, but primarily they use dexterity. I would say if I was going monk, you would want to put most of your points into dexterity and wisdom. Honestly, I should rewrite that, but I'm not going to because I'm doing a video. That's for our melee classes. Onto our magic classes. So the flip coin of the fighter for spellcasters is the wizard. I use this picture of Merlin from Sword in the Stone because the main thing about wizards is that there are a lot of ways to get magical power and use magical power in D&D. Like with the paladin, you get it, you're blessed from some kind of deity. With wizards, they get their power from knowledge within books. So they are very heavy on intelligence. They have to know a lot of things. Most of their spell casting power comes from intelligence. You have to use a spell book. You don't just know spells. All of your spells are in a spell book. So the other side of that hindrance is you get to put more spells in your arsenal. You have a big spell book, you can write a lot of them in. You're the only class that if you find like a spell scroll in a dungeon somewhere, you can copy it into your book, and then you have that spell for good. Wizards are very powerful, especially at the higher levels. kind of like for people, it's hard to do this without making a lot of like pop culture or nerd references, but they are the Batman of the D&D world. A wizard with enough prep time can do anything they want and just defeat anyone, truly. Uh, for the next spellcaster, we have sorcerer. These are not people who get their power from books. These people get power, magical power from within. They don't get it from a deity. They don't get it from any other source. They have it within them, either from like maybe a being that resides inside them, maybe from their blood. It could be an ancestor. Maybe your ancestor is a dragon, and you have like some kind of dragon powers. Usually, the story for sorcerers is that they have to learn to control their power. Kind of think like Superman as a kid. He's young and he doesn't know how to control his X-ray vision or whatever, and that makes him kind of, have a hard time at school in Kansas. But they are also pretty powerful. I mean, anyone that uses magic is pretty powerful. Honestly, anyone in this game can be powerful at all. It just depends on how you want to play them. Because they have this internal sorcerers have this internal magic, they also mostly use charisma. This is them bending their will around the fabric of the universe around them. Magic without spellbooks. It's pretty cool. Warlock. This is what I would say like the third of the main spellcasters. They, kind of similar to paladins, they get their magic from a pact or a deal with an entity. This is your I saw Goody Proctor dancing with the devil. There are a lot of different ways to play this too. It doesn't have to be evil, just like the paladin doesn't have to be good. You could have a neutral entity. You could have like a ghost. There's one subclass for warlocks where you're a genie and your patron is another genie that gave you genie powers, and so you're just a genie, and it's pretty cool. They also primarily use charisma. They're just their force of will to control the world around them. Wisdom is also good. They're good at feeling things that are around, kind of intuiting magic or people. Definitely a fun class to play, and I can say that about all of these. The cleric, for I don't know if anyone watches Call the Midwife, but this is you're a priest. You're very similar to the paladin, actually. You get your power again from a deity. Doesn't have to be good. Could be bad. Cleric, paladin, and warlock are all kind of like steps siblings or something like that. Usually, the clerics are the healers, along with paladins. They do most of the healing spells with them. They primarily use wisdom. They get wisdom from covenant with their whoever their deity is. Although they're not really like squishy spellcasters the way that a wizard or a sorcerer is. They usually can wear heavy armor, shields. They have a mace. They can do damage up front. They just also have a lot of good magic power for healing and like smiting evil, especially undead. So if that's your bag, then there it is. Almost last, third to last, penultimate on this list is the druid. They like to get their magic from nature. That is to say, I believe that the 5e, the 5th edition for Dungeons and Dragons says that it's like the old religion, the old magic, kind of, harkening back to like paganism. But yeah, you get your magic from nature. You get a lot of spells up front that you can choose to prepare per day. That's a specific thing for druids. That's pretty cool. A big thing about druids is that they can transform into animals, which is very, very cool. You get your own health with that, and if you die as an animal, you just turn back into your druid human form or whatever. And then you have the same health you did. So they can actually be very tanky. They also have good healing, believe it or not. They have some pretty decent spells that can help with healing. And and beyond. Primarily wisdom, some intelligence. You do want a druid to be kind of, smart, but mostly they are of the intuiting kind. And out of that, we have the bard, which is a very fun support class. They can do a little bit of everything. They are kind of considered the jack of all trades. There's actually a skill they get called that, where they are very good with a bunch of different skills. They utilize magic just in the same way that wizards use words and hand gestures to make magic happen. Bards have memorized some magic by rote, so they say the same words, they do the same things. Not nearly as well and not nearly as intricately as a wizard, but just enough to be able to do some cool stuff. You can either do it via music or poetry, or some people do like dance as a way to make a bard. Again, please be as creative as you want or not. This is definitely a game about doing whatever you want to do while understanding that there are consequences to actions. They get something that is called Bardic Inspiration, which means that you can give anyone in your party, or I think anyone at all, a little bit of Bardic Inspiration. Maybe you sing them put a little song their way, and it actually helps them roll a little bit better. This is one of the classes where I would say they actually primarily use the traditional sense of charisma, where they are good performers, they are real good fast talkers. I can't imagine anyone who's seen the D&D movie that doesn't know how to play D&D, but if you have, Chris Pine's character is a bard. Or actually, no, he's not. He's a rogue. Never mind. Forget that. Bards are cool. That was my last class I played. They're a lot of fun. And the 13th class, the dreaded Artificer. Tony Stark says it all. They're inventors. They do magic via tools. They are able to imbue tools with magic so that they can do magic and be cool guys. Maybe they don't necessarily, maybe they're not adept in making magic happen, but they are able to use their vast intellect, which is pretty big there, in order to get everything going, I believe they are technically a spellcaster, but they're kind of like the cleric and the paladin in the sense that they can use, a mixture of the two. You also get fun little gizmos. You get you can get a wind-up robot that you can use for a little bit that can do some stuff. I've never played an artificer, but they're a lot of fun. So feel free to take a look at them too. Yeah. That is the 13 classes. That is the 6 abilities. One thing I do want to go into real quick, just to kind of round this off, is skills. This is my fiance's character in a different campaign that we're doing right now. I'm going to go over this real quick. So there's a list of skills that I'll be like, or your DM will be like, all right, so you want to know more about this temple. Either make a history check or you can make a religion check to see what you know. So you'd roll your big d20 and then add on this little modifier. I'm going to go through these real quick. So acrobatics, a lot of them are very self-explanatory. Acrobatics is how nimble you are. If you're trying to, jump out of the way of like a boulder, Indiana Jones style, you're going to roll acrobatics. Animal handling is how well you can soothe a horse, how well you can soothe a wolf. It's mostly to do with soothing animals, getting them to trust you. They use wisdom. That is, into it. It's not like you can use as much intellect as you want, but you want a little bit of wisdom to know how to communicate with an animal. Arcana. This is just your knowledge of magic in general. What kind of spell did you just sense be cast in the dark? This person just disappeared. Was it was it a spell or were they taken to another dimension? This is what you would roll to figure that out. Athletics, very similar to acrobatics, except you're using strength instead of dexterity. This is, if you're trying to grapple someone, if you're trying to scale a mountain, if you're trying to run for a long time, um, climb a tree, things that you would think of in that sense, that's athletics. Deception. I don't think we've talked a lot about interpersonal, character relations or with NPCs, but you do a lot of talking to different people in the game. It is a role-playing game, so you're pretending to be your character and figure out what they would do in the world around you. Sometimes you gotta lie. Sometimes if sometimes you're hiding something, either if for whatever reason, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But if you're lying, you would roll deception. History, like I said, this is just general history about the world around you. This is very conditional on what world you're in that the DM has you in. Um, if it's like a homebrew world that the DM just has wholly invented, they would probably know more about the history than if it's like say the D&D sponsored world called Forgotten Realms. Maybe they might not know a lot of the history off the top of their head, so they'd have you roll something else. But that's what history would be for. Um, Insight, probably one of the more esoteric ones of skills. This is trying to read somebody. This is you would roll insight if someone is trying to lie to you or if they're trying to persuade you. This is how you tell if they're telling the truth. This is how you can see if, even if someone doesn't say anything, they're affected by what's happening. This is how you read a person. In the same way that animal handling is kind of like how you read an animal. They both use wisdom. Intimidation. So this is, oddly enough, you'd think, again, pretty straightforward. It's actually charisma based instead of being like strength based. So instead of being like a big, strong barbarian that's good in intimidation, usually the rogues and the bards are the best at intimidation. Just threats, basically. Instead of deception, you're flat out threatening people, being like, if you don't do this, or if you do this, then this is what's going to happen, and you're not going to like it. From there, we go to investigation. This is just trying to see more about a specific object. I'll revisit investigation when we get to perception because they're kind of two sides of the same coin. Medicine can be a couple things. This is how you would know how to make like a poultice or different kinds of medicines, like literally medicine. You would also use this to try to determine what is wrong with someone who's ailing from something. To figure out, are they bleeding internally? Are they, are they succumbing from a sickness or like a curse? We would have you roll medicine for that. It's also used for if someone is like kind of bleeding out and like passed out making death saving throws and they're dying, you would go up to them and try to make a medicine check to help like stabilize them. Maybe like put pressure on the bleeding to help them. Nature is intelligence. This is your like knowledge of trees and berries, different kinds of herbs. Nature and medicine usually go together. The natural world, this is also, your biomes that you're in. What does it look like the weather's going to be like tomorrow? A lot of things you can imagine. Perception. This is probably the biggest, most often used skill in D&D by far. This is what you can see, what you can smell, what you can feel, what you can hear. I hope not what you can taste, but you could, that is one of the senses. This is what you would use, like say you're walking through the forest and you're trying to keep your eyes open for like a cougar or something. You're listening for twigs snapping. You're trying to keep your eyes open to see any movement. The way that this is different from investigation is that investigation is like you're trying to perceive a lot of things about one thing in particular. You'd use investigation if you are
trying to see, you found like a den that looks like it might have had cougars in it. You're investigating that area. You're looking for prints. You're looking for, bits of hair. Um, Also very similar to survival at the bottom, which we will go over. Um, from perception, we go to performance. This is charisma. This is, you know, if you're doing a speech, if you are playing music, very straightforward. If you are performing in any way, um, sometimes deception and performance can be kind of like interchangeable, but usually it's pretty clear which one you're trying to do. Persuasion is, persuasion is the opposite of deception. It's basically just trying to convince someone of something, but you mean it. You're telling the truth, as opposed to trying to convince someone of something that is not true. Um, Also, charisma, religion. Like I said, this is just your knowledge of the like, spirits, religion in that world. It's intellect, so it's really just facts that you've known. Um, Sleight of hand. This is a couple things. This is either trying to pickpocket someone, like you're trying to steal something without being noticed, or you are trying to hide something small on your person without being noticed. Um, so very much, rogues definitely use sleight of hand a lot. Stealth, both of these are dexterity based. So, how quick you are, how smooth you can be with your hands. Stealth is trying to hide your whole body. You're trying to hide in the shadows from an incoming band of orcs coming around the corner, trying to make sure they don't see you. It's pretty much that. You're trying to make sure no one is alerted to your presence. Usually, stealth is rolled against perception. So if you roll a higher stealth than they roll perception, they don't notice you. If they get a higher perception than you rolled stealth, they notice you. And lastly, survival. Kind of investigation ties into perception, and investigation also ties into survival. Survival is being like a woodsman, basically, an outdoors person. This is how well you know how to start a fire, how well you can find water, like outside, how easily you can track animal prints, make traps for animals. Um, a lot of times, survival and nature go hand in hand. It's very easy for most of these skills to kind of be like, oh, you could roll survival or nature, or you could roll survival or investigation. Um, all very useful. Some of these are used more than others, but uh, that's the skills. Um, the higher, I guess, last thing I'll say about it is the higher that your ability is, then the easier it is for you to do certain things that have it tied. So this character, Willow, is pretty well-rounded. High dexterity, so she has high acrobatics, +2 to that, same as +2 here. Sleight of hand and stealth, those are both +2. This little thing that says proficiency, you can be proficient in a skill and get an extra little bonus to it. Um, every character has the same proficiency bonus given certain levels. I think you get a higher, I think you go +3 proficiency at level 5 or 6, something like that. And that just kind of bumps a lot of these up pretty high, especially if you're Bard. And yeah, that's D&D Basics. I guess I should have said maybe get some notes. If you're watching this, I'll try to have a link somewhere where you can find this and just keep it. This little sheet. I had this printed out somewhere or, saved. So you can check it out. Thanks for watching this. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. Feel free to rewind and watch anything over again. And good luck. Have fun playing.